I played a little with my sister, but she wasn't too interested. So then I started playing games with myself. I would make the white moves and the black moves, and then we, then I would just play through the whole game, and eventually I would checkmate the other guy. Or I almost always won the game. And so I did that for a while. Then my mother started to get worried that it wasn't healthy to be playing chess by myself all the time. So she got me some opponents, some local kids, and then she started taking me around to chess clubs and stuff like that.
Hello. For a long time already, for maybe a few years, I wanted to make DVD series about the best chess players in the world. And if I did that, I would probably start with in chronological order with probably Morphy, Steinitz, Lasker, Alekhine, Capablanca, and so on. But if I had to start with the best players ever, I would probably start with Bobby Fischer. But now I have to start this series for the best players ever lived because of unfortunate and untimely death of chess icon Bobby Fischer. Now, I'm not gonna here tell you his biography, what he did, because you can all pick this material up from anywhere on the internet, from any book, from any publication. That's not my goal now. My goal now to tell you about things that were not widely publicized in press, and to tell you about things that that not too many people know about Bobby. Well, I have met him myself, and I spent some time with him, quite a bit of time actually. And I want to share you this information. So we all know quickly that Bobby Fischer was absolute genius. That's not a secret. I don't even have to mention it. But what people don't know, maybe didn't know, some of the people, that he was not eccentric in a way that he wanted to be eccentric. No, he was special education child. And actually, I read a little bit about special education children, and they have to be approached and dealt with in a special way. That's what Bobby never got. He never was dealt by either U.S. Chess Federation or media in a special way. That's what made him such a isolated person. Bobby Fischer, in the age of 12, already was beating grandmaster in a very, very strong games. The games he played were on the highest level. Well, there is no need to mention that he was, by the age of 13, he already played in candidates tournaments, and he was one of the best players at the age of 14, 15, and the grandmaster that deserved worldwide recognition. Well, all this very well known. Well, he played the match with Boris Spassky in 1972, which was Cold War era. And I lived in Soviet Union then, and I'll tell you, for Russians, this was highly political match. It was highly important of them. They had to show that they are superior to Western world, and namely to Americans. And one way to show that Russian nation and Soviet Union and their politics, their superior for them in their eyes, was to defeat Bobby Fischer, to become world champion. And we know that Soviet Union was, by then, at that time in 72, was absolutely, for 30 years at least, was totally dominating chess world. And big majority, huge majority of best players in the world were from Soviet Union. And here, Soviet champion, the world champion, Boris Spassky, was going to play Bobby Fischer. Involvement was on the highest political ranks. People were involved. Number 2 in command and number 3 in command in Soviet Union, it's a huge empire, were personally giving directions and orders regarding this match. All top Soviet players were mobilizing in preparation for this match, in helping Boris Spassky, because to them it was national pride. It was a lot more than a pride, and there was given an order. Order was given to all best players, and well, we should all know what would mean in Soviet Union not to obey orders. So order was given to absolutely help him in any way they can. Everybody was following its orders except for Boris Spassky himself. Boris Spassky himself, he didn't like to study. He was always known as very talented, very strong player, but at the same time, very lazy player. This was complete opposite to Bobby Fischer. And now, who did Bobby had as a helpers? He had some people to help him, couple of people maybe. One of them was a good friend of mine, Bill Lombardi. But Bill Lombardi was never huge theoretician, and it could not, by himself, he could not stand against all army of the top players in the world as far as helping Bobby for preparation to this match. So what we have, practically, we had Bobby Fischer alone against the elite of top players in the world. And match started with big controversy. I don't want to get involved in it. I don't want to talk about it. 1972. Well, after the game, Spassky won game 1, and game 2 Fischer did not show up for the game. So, and before the game 3, Boris Spassky was given an advice from Mikhail Tal. He was given an advice not to show up for game 3. This was not widely known and publicized. And in his opinion, and I absolutely share this opinion with him, if Spassky did not show up for game 3, match would never have continued, and Boris Spassky would have retained his world championship title. Well, there is no 100% way of knowing whether it's true or not, but I strongly believe That's what would have happened. But of course it wasn't up to Mikhail Tal, and it wasn't up to Boris Spassky. Only thing was up to Boris Spassky there was what move to make. Every decision, every controversy was resolved, and every decision was resolved by the Moscow. Much was held in Reykjavik in 1972, but all decisions on Boris Spassky's behalf was made in Moscow. Actually, it was made in Kremlin, on the highest political level. Well, of course, Boris Spassky never had a luxury. I don't know if he wanted to forfeit third game by himself, but Spassky is a very honorable man, and he might have done that because he didn't feel right continuing match with such a present. Well, he did a match continued, and we know that Bobby Fischer completely dominated this match, and he convincingly won the match and world championship title. Then what happened, I said, Bobby, well, we know that Bobby had some personal problems. He was suffering from paranoia. I cannot say that paranoia was 100% without any reason for it, but he suffered from paranoia, and he did not want to play tournaments right after the match. Right after the match, whatever money he made in the match, which was at that time, I believe, a little over $200,000, he gave all of it to Church of God. That's the organization that he was very fascinated with and following himself. And this Church of God was in Pasadena. Shortly after, this organization was moved to Texas. And Bobby Fischer didn't go to Texas. He didn't follow this organization, and he stayed in Pasadena and lived in the basement of one of the ladies, the associates of Church of God, Claudia Makarov. He lived there practically without money. He hardly had any money left. And he refused to defend his title in 75 against Anatoly Karpov. Of course, that would be silly to think that he was afraid, because Bobby was not afraid of Anatoly Karpov. I know that for sure. And also, I'm good friend of Anatoly Karpov's, and I can tell you, I believe Fischer would have won the match, even though he never played a game between 72 and 75. That's 3 years. I believe he would have won, but we leave the speculation aside, and we talk about his career. Now, later, I got to mention that Bobby Fischer and me, we had one mutual friend, New York chess player, lady Sharnaz Kennedy. She is Indian descent, was married to another New York master, John Kennedy. And she was very friendly with Bobby, and they had a lot of exchange of correspondence. He was very open and trusted to her. So Bobby Fischer was not any longer world champion in 75, and he refused to play any chess games. In 1980, in a March, I believe it was March or April, I met Bobby in Pasadena. And I tell you, there's something amazing. You know, I would never forget this in my life. When we talked about chess, we looked at some chess positions, we shared opinion. He was pleasant, he was very enthusiastic, he was showing some variations, and then the amazing thing that happened with us, I was showing him one of my games, and I said, "What? When in this and this opening, I went like this, this," and Bobby said, "No, that's not the way it happened. You played that move first, and then you played this." So, and I checked, and this was true. So I had at that time very good memory, but I was absolutely shocked that I could not remember my game as well as Bobby Fischer. I don't know what I was amazed of, that he had such a phenomenal memory, or I was very upset that my memory failed me. So either way, I was extremely impressed, and it was amazing. His memory was absolutely photographic and unbelievable. So then I played with Bobby like numerous blitz games. We played a lot of blitz games. And this I will never forget. I spoken to him about this. Some of his views on the chess world and politics, I want to keep out of this DVD because I would never share them. But I'm going to tell you, I do not admire Bobby Fischer for his taste in food, in clothing, or for his politics. No, Bobby Fischer was absolutely brilliant only in one direction, in one way. He was greatest chess player probably ever lived. So in 1980, I met Bobby. He was already 8 years in retirement. He was still extremely sharp. His memory, he was still analyzing. He loved chess. He analyzed some theoretical chess variations. Then when I saw how much he knows about theory and he's studying currently, I thought tomorrow he is preparing to play some very big tournament. That was the intensity of his preparation. But what was he preparing for? He was not preparing for anything. He just loved chess. He loved the truth of chess, and he loved doing research. He loved doing research in the areas that he would never even play. Even in the openings, he had no intentions to play. He was absolute through amazing. That's the only word I can use. He was amazing me every moment we analyzed something. He amazed me before without I was amazed by him without meeting him even. So Fischer stopped playing, and he completely was in shade. Now let's go to the, and he has made actually a lot of attempts to play some of the top players in the world. He even expressed opinion of playing Anand. Vishy Anand, at that point, he wasn't the top player, one of the top players in the world, but Fischer did not want to get involved with Russians. He didn't trust them, and Anand was from India, and there was, he wanted to play, of course, for a lot of money as a prize fund, but his main um, goal was to remain the world champion. So in his eyes, he was always announcing he didn't like to be called Bobby Fischer. He liked to be called world champion Bobby Fischer, even though there was already a world champion, Anatoly Karpov. So in 1991, Fischer said he would play some match, and he really needed money at that point. He didn't have any means for existence, so so he wanted to play some match. And there was, when match with Anand never happened, Fischer said he will play unification match between against his old rival Boris Spassky. And at that time, Fischer contacted, I already mentioned friend Sharnaz Kennedy, and asked, actually Sharnaz Kennedy on Fischer's behalf, she asked USCF to donate. Fischer didn't even own computer then. Computer, database, and a lot of people from all over the United States. Of course, they were more than happy to assist. Fischer got the computer. Fischer got all the databases, all the softwares he needed for preparation for his match against Boris Spassky in 1992. And there was this match started. Fischer won the first game. It was very, very powerful game he won. And after the game, at that time, Garry Kasparov was world champion. And Kasparov said, "This is the Fischer, the same Fischer as he remembered from 1972, based on the game." But that would have been a lot more than amazing if we could think that someone did not play chess for 20 years and still was in the same form. No, that didn't happen. Then Fischer lost 2 games after that, and well, he ended up winning the rest of the match anyway. The rest he dominated, and we could see that it was not the same Fischer. It was still very strong player. As Kasparov said after the match in the middle, he is still good. He is about 2600 area player at that time in 91. That was pretty high. Right now we have different numbers. But that was not the same Fischer we had. Nevertheless, Fischer liked and did get crowned as world champion, and he got a lot of money for this, over $3 million. But then arose a problem. Before the match, there was he was playing in Yugoslavia. Match was played, and United States had embargo, and they had they gave an order for Fischer not to play any event, not to participate anywhere in that country, because there was political sanctions against this country. Fischer played anyway, and he did some things very derogatory for himself against the U.S. government. And obviously, after the match, here he got a lot of money, and he cannot come back to the United States. Well, he traveled from country to country and tried to find where he was going to live. He tried to avoid big cities like London, Paris, or Berlin, or because he might have been in the hands of U.S. government and he might have been extradited to United States and prosecuted there for violation of their directions, so violation of rules, and that's why Bobby Fischer he lived in Hungary. Then he was thinking of going to India, and he ended up in Japan. Well, at that time, when he ended up in Japan, when he tried to board the plane, I believe, to Philippines, he was arrested by Japanese government because of illegal travel documents. His travel documents was not in order, and he was put in jail. Well, United States they demanded his extradition. But Fischer did not have citizenship in any country, so he was in Japanese jail. And finally, he was asking for political asylum and citizenship in some of the countries who would accept. And there was negotiation started by some people, I don't want to name them, with some Icelandic government. And Icelanders have special relationship with Fischer because the match he won in '72 was in Iceland, and that's why highest politicians in Iceland granted him visa, not only visa, but the citizenship. They gave him, he became Icelandic citizen without even being at that time in Iceland. He couldn't have been in Iceland because he was in Japanese jail. Well, Boris Spassky was one of the people that tried to put Fischer back to board. They became friends, and Fischer actually was talking very highly on Boris Spassky. But why wouldn't he? Boris Spassky made him. He played him 2 matches. He beat him both times. There was no controversy. Made Fischer very happy. Both times Fischer made a lot of money. Of course he would be friend. He would be my friend too, even if I didn't know him. So, okay. Now, we're talking about, I believe in 2005, already Fischer was he was released from jail, and he flew to Iceland. I have to tell you this, that U.S. government tried to prosecute Fischer, and they demanded his extradition because on tax evasion charges too, because he hasn't paid taxes maybe for last 25 years. And that didn't work because he was already Icelandic citizen. U.S. government has treaty with Iceland which says that they should exchange the extradition treaty, but it does not concern Icelandic citizens, and Bobby Fischer was Icelandic citizen. So therefore United States couldn't get him. So, but what happened is Bobby Fischer was released from Japanese jail, and together with his fiancée And at that time, his fiancée was president of Japanese Chess Association. I don't know how it happened, and actually it doesn't really matter. They flew together to Iceland. They flew together to Iceland, and well, shortly after that, this lady, his fiancée, they went back to Japan, and Fischer stayed in Iceland, and in one of the televised matches, there was some televised chess tournament was played, and I remember someone that was already in press, that Fischer called some telestation and told them that one of the players, there was, like, I'm talking about some very strong grandmasters, they both, together with the commentators, missed some fantastic tactical opportunity. And we are talking about men over 60 years old against young, strong grandmasters. Well, as far as they missed it all, commentators missed it, and Bobby Fischer saw it. So we're talking about he was still probably in very good shape. But how good shape and how strong was he? We know he wouldn't be as strong as in 1972, but we had no exact idea how strong he was. So then, well, and Bobby Fischer remained in Iceland. He made a lot of statements. He wanted to start lawsuit against even against the United States, but then he developed kidney disease, and he passed away just a very little while ago. I have to tell you that a lot of people say Bobby Fischer doesn't care about anything or anybody, and never cared about anybody. I heard this many times from press, from TV, and on internet, and personally from many different people. However, I got to tell you something. Bobby Fischer, when he was growing up in New York, he had a friend who was mentally unstable person named Jackie Beers. Jackie Beers was a good friend of Bobby Fischer, and while being already in Eastern Europe, and maybe even in Iceland already, he was not in Japan because in jail, not from jail, but Bobby Fischer wrote to his friends in the United States, including Sharnas Kennedy, that he wants them to find Jackie Beers. He might have been in some mental institution or somewhere in the places that nor ordinarily you wouldn't expect to find him and help him in any way they can. That's what his request was. And that shows some interesting views on some friendship things. Bobby Fischer actually was very trusting person. He would trust you very much in beginning. That's how it was. He was originally. And then once he hears something suspicious, he rapidly turns against you, and you become immediately from close friend to the worst enemy, bypassing hundreds of different other stages. So that's how he was, and that's what made him paranoid. He was paranoid about a lot of things. So we don't want to talk about his negative things, but I wanted to remember only Bobby as a best player ever lived. He was totally amazing me every time I would look at his game or talk to him. or seeing his analysis in of chess. So, and Bobby Fischer said he would never play normal chess. He will never play normal chess because it's so much theory there. People all studying and no more. They don't use their imagination. Everything is computerized. And he had a point in that. He said he would play shuffle chess. Shuffle chess meant that not the pawns but background pieces will be shuffled in some the different places on the background, switching like kings with rooks, with bishops and knights. And then he said that will eliminate theory and everything has to be product, every move has to be product of the brain. So of course it was very difficult to endorse that, but that didn't work. And then he said he would play anything abnormal. He wanted he invented actually increment chess. So chess where you have so much time on a clock and you get from every move you make, you get increment of so many seconds or so many minutes. People were laughing at him. People were laughing at him, but now there are strongest competitions in the world that uses this time control. They have increment for every move on so many seconds. For example, sometimes they play tournaments 20-20, which is 20 moves per game plus 20 seconds for every move. And that was originally Bobby Fischer's idea. Also, I remember about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I got a call from a representative of Gothic chess. Gothic chess is one of the varieties of chess, and they wanted to organize multi-million-dollar match between Bobby Fischer and Anatoly Karpov playing Gothic chess. They were very close to reaching agreement, and Karpov was willing to do that. They called me because they knew I was close friend of Anatoly Karpov and I could get in touch with him. I did get in touch with him. I talked to Anatoly. He agreed to play the match. Well, but as you know, playing match against Bobby Fischer, when everything you think is set, it's never set until the first move made. So match never took a place for whatever reason, and that was the end of it. So, and just very recently, Bobby passed away, and he was very controversial, super genius.
Now, what I want to do, I want to show you few games played by Bobby Fischer. Of course, everybody familiar with his My 60 Most Memorable Games. But what I want, the games I want to show you, they are not the best of his games. There are some critical games and some games that show his genius or how talented he was. And these games are, I think they are most memorable for me, at least. Now, get the board, and I want to share with you some of most interesting games of